Good evening, folks. It's Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, Magnetic Reversal News, Sacred Geography, and Shinrin Yoku, bringing you a grand solar minimum update Wednesday, April 12th, around 8 p.m. Mountain Time 2023. The strong eruptive episode at Shiveluch continues today. 4 major eruptions over the last 36 hours, and we'll have full details in just a moment. But the big story is the snowmelt season has begun in earnest. It began April 7th here and has been continuing for the rest of the week. Take a look at the San Juan River here at Pagosa, up to 1,700 cubic feet per second the other night. And that means record whitewater season. Keep calm. It's boom time. Widespread flooding along the Wasatch Front as well after rapid weather warm-up. It is spring, ding-dang. North Ogden neighbors fighting back waters from flooding canals is a sign of the times. Utah flooding. Sinkholes form in Kaysville. Flood advisory issued near Salt Lake City's East Beach. Record-breaking temperatures are melting Utah's historic snowpack, and epic results are occurring. And that means that there will be Mississippi River spring flooding. And we're talking about way up at the headwaters up in Wisconsin, up in the northern regions. And it is already peaking for 2023. High chances of moderate flooding for most locations in the northern Mississippi Basin. Chances for major flooding based on snow melt alone are extremely low, but it will rain and it could push some of these flood totals. Like at Lake City, it's going to be in minor flood stage by April 18th. Moderate flood stage for Wabasha on the 18th as well. And it's looking like Alma is looking pretty good. Moderate flood stage in Minnesota City reached by April 18th. Let's look at some of these. Moderate flood stage in Winona by the 19th. It's looking like moderate flood stage in Trempelo by the 19th as well. Moderate flood stage for La Crosse by the 19th. And let's take a look, see if there's any more extreme forecasts. That is what's happening just through the next week. As we keep a close eye on Mississippi River spring flooding 2023. Now, this could increase with weather as we move into spring, ding-ding, as this bulge moves south into the southern states of the Mississippi. So stay tuned for more updates. Storm to bring coastal flooding along Gulf Coast, but also much needed rain, and that leads to flooding in South Florida, which sees nearly a foot of rain today in just hours, flooding Fort Lauderdale Airport and many other regions. Take a look at this. Some people parked in, well, ponds underneath an overpass. Here you can see flooding in Fort Lauderdale Airport here. And let's take a look at some of that rain footage.
Now we're going to prepare for our first mission.
This is a real sad.
Of course, there's always a correction. But take a look at that. It looks like snow in Fort Lauderdale. But in fact, that is rain looking insane. It almost looks like a tropical system, doesn't it? But I do digress. We did forecast a tropical system moving through Florida on Friday. We were a little early. But more is coming to Florida. According to many, this is much needed rain for the area, so good news. Bad news in the areas we reported high fire weather threat, and that was all of the Northeast. New Jersey wildfire, 60% contained as evacuation orders are lifted. Good news. This fire exploded to more than 4,000 acres, burned in Manchester Township. But evacuation orders now have been lifted in New Jersey. Good news. But toxic smoke is spewing from an inferno at a recycling plant known as a fire hazard, according to officials. The flames could burn for days, and it looks beyond toxic. It looks
I've always
insane.
said that place is going to go up in flames one day, and it sure did.
This massive fire at a large recycling plant putting out toxic smoke could burn for days. Officials say 14 acres of plastics stored on the property. But with this site especially, it wasn't a matter of if, but when, with city officials aware the operations were a fire hazard.
The issue was a unsafe building and unsafe grounds.
and putting the blame squarely on an owner of the recycling plant.
That business owner is fully responsible for all of this. We have the unsafe building order and the recorded court documents, and everything that's ensued here, the fire, the damages, the risk that our first responders have taken and the risk these citizens are under are the responsibility of that negligent business owner.
An evacuation order is in place for a half-mile radius. Around 2,000 residents ordered to evacuate, including one who lives at the heart of it.
I could see from the debris that some of it was on fire and it hit the trees, the tree line, and the trees immediately ignited.
When she got the evacuation order, she didn't hesitate to leave her home.
But when they said evacuate, I didn't have shoes on, I had socks on, and I left my purse, my shoes, I left a lot of things, personal things, at the house and just got in the car and drove away.
For health officials, their key concern now is hazards from the smoke.
These are very fine particles, and if they're breathed in, can cause all kinds of respiratory problems. Burning of the eyes, tightening of the chest, it could aggravate asthma, it could cause bronchitis and all kinds of things.
The EPA monitoring particulate matter, looking for toxic chemicals. Residents are being told to stay indoors, but the uncertainty is causing concerns and frustrations.
It's hard to say what's going into the city air right now.
We would like to know that it is safe to be able to breathe the air and to drink the water. So we want to hear from the officials.
Now, that's not the only junkyard on fire tonight. According to CBS Philadelphia, a 3-alarm junkyard fire has been placed under control according to the fire department in Hunting Park, which is in North Philadelphia, where I used to teach at Temple University. So multiple toxic waste fires happening today across the country. If you need more updates like this, you can always follow us on Oppenheimer Ranch Project at Diamond the Dave. Just click on follow and stay tuned for more boom, as we issued a tornado warning for Dunedin Beach earlier today. Now, El Niño is forecast to return in 2023, and it is El Niño. The ENSO forecast is right now neutral, so we're going to get to those facts in just a moment here. Here is what it means for potentially extreme weather in the U.S. Here are the model predictions of ENSO from February 2023, and it's showing we will enter El Niño in May and stay in high El Niño starting in June or July based on the consensus from most of the models. Now, what does that mean for you and I? Well, if you live up in the Pacific Northwest, specifically British Columbia, perhaps, or Alberta, it will be exceptionally warm over this period, dry in the Ohio Valley, and cool for most of the South, and wet in the Four Corners region, where we see an amazing monsoon season here. And it typically will last for several years. Once we get into the El Niño pattern, it should probably stick for a few years, in my opinion. So it's going to be wet in the desert Southwest as we deepen into the grand solar minimum. Now here's the full forecast. Critical fire weather from the Southwest to the Northeast U.S. Heavy snow in the Northern Rockies. Dry air and gusty winds are expected the next few days from the Southwest U.S. into the Northeast U.S., where near continuous arc of red flag warnings and or fire weather watches are highlighted and elevated to critical fire weather warnings. A storm system moving through the Northwest U.S. will bring heavy snow to the Northern Rockies through Thursday. And, well, winter is not over. Let's take a look at the areas for the biggest threat for flooding. Those will be Louisiana and the Pacific Northwest there. You can see the purple and yellow regions will be the hardest hit with precipitation. That goes from 6 to 16 inches in just the next few weeks. Now, total snowfall is looking just as epic. Take a look at the snowfall totals in Ontario. Yeah, that's going to be scary, yo. So we're going to wait to see that lie down. That's just coming in a few days, starting on this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. That will be their fun day up in Ontario. But take a look at the U.S. as a whole. We've got a rapid system moving through Montana here Thursday and Friday, and then that system begins in the weekend in Ontario as we have some snow moving through Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin at the same time. Michigan going to be picking up a little light snow, as well as the Northeast like a beast, and the snow continues west of the Continental Divide. Seismic update. No quakes of note. Some rockers happening on the west coast here. We did have a small slurry of activity here in Cobb, California, as well as the geysers. Now, this is all activity related to the geysers, but not significant normal activity nonetheless. No other major quakes of note. Worldwide volcano news update. Swanos Hema puffing to 8,000. We've got Ibo, Reventador, and Sabancaya. Ibo to 6,000. Sabancaya to 23,000. Reventador to 14,000. And Cotopaxi coming in with a 22,000-foot puff. As Shiveluch spews an ash cloud for the second day in Russia's Kamchatka, people are on edge in this region. The uptick in activity has continued for 36 hours with 4 eruptive events and aviation warnings. Shiveluch volcano eruption is impacting flights in the region as the aviation color code is still red and the strong eruptive period goes on. Now let's take a look at the history of the volcano starting back at the 52,000-foot eruption on the 10th, just a few days ago. That was followed by a 40,000-foot puff on the 11th, followed by a 33,000-foot puff on the 11th again, and a 28,000-foot puff that we are picturing here today. Hey, hey. So the eruptive activity is continuing at Shiveluch. The volcano is dominated by ongoing strong Vulcanian-type explosions and generally continues at high elevated levels after the dramatic paroxysm activity on the 10th. And this has been placed at VEI 4, in case you were wondering. Intermittent but relatively vigorous eruptions have generated gray, still spectacular, billowing ash plumes over the past 24 hours. Tall and dense columns sent fine volcanic ash up to 12 kilometers, 10 kilometers, and 8.5 kilometers, respectively, in the height. The original ash plume from the massive eruption yesterday has extended 1,300 kilometers to the east of the volcano. That is insano. Let's take a look at some of the pictures there. And that is the eruption from today, from Sentinel. And that is the best we can do. Who knew? Now you do. Space weather news update. This solar max sun that we're experiencing is quite embarrassing. It is, in fact, a pinprick sunspot embarrassment. Solar activity is in the low C range, currently C 3.2. The 3-day geomagnetic forecast is flat, not getting much above geomagnetic instability. And we've been hovering around KP1 for days. So not much to report on. The sun is quite pathetic. Albeit a few coronal holes could be giving us some low-level geomagnetic activity over the next 3 days, but nothing as far as geomagnetic storm do we have to worry about. Now, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius turned its victims' brains into glass. That's amazing. Hot gas clouds reaching 550 degrees C engulfed nearby towns of Herculaneum, instantly vaporizing its inhabitants. Now, if it instantaneously vaporized its inhabitants, how could it turn the victims' brains into glass? That's my question. Now, take a look at this article. A bizarre object 10 million times brighter than the sun defies physics, according to NASA, which is an acronym for Never a Straight Answer. A bizarre ultra-luminous X-ray source shines millions of times brighter than the sun, breaking a physical law called the Eddington limit, according to a new study. And the pictures, well, they are quite spectacular. Take a look. That's believable. Something in outer space is breaking the laws of physics. And a new observation published in the Astrophysical Journal from NASA's Nuclear Spectroscopic Telescope Array, or NuSTAR, which sees the universe in high-energy X-rays, confirmed that one particular ULX called M82X-2 is too bright. Prior theory suggested that the extreme brightness could be some sort of optical illusion, but this new work shows that that's not the case. This ULX, or ultra-luminous object, is actually defying Eddington's limit somehow. Now, Eddington's limit is a physical property that is being exceeded here. An object like this can't be as luminous as it actually is due to observation. And if you use the standard model of science, that means that the standard model of cosmology is wrong. But I do digress. Astronomers used to believe that ULXs could be black holes, which are hypothetical things that are imaginary and aren't really real things. But I do digress. But in this case, M82X-2 is an object known as a neutron star. Another fantastical made-up fairy tale, but I will continue. Now, neutron stars are considered to be, quote-unquote, leftover dead cores of stars like a sun. A neutron star is so dense that the gravity on its surface is 100 trillion times stronger than Earth. Yes, that is a fairy tale. 100 trillion times stronger than Earth. This intense gravity means that any material pulled into the dead star's surface would have catastrophic explosive effects. In fact, a marshmallow dropped on the surface of a neutron star would hit it with the energy of thousands of hydrogen bombs, according to NASA, which, by the way, stands for never a straight answer. Now let's watch the fantastical video they provided to explain everything. Of course. Yes, of course. Of course they're right. Yep, makes sense, doesn't it? I'll tell you what makes sense. Preparing for the inevitable. But what does the inevitable mean? North Korean missile prompts brief evacuation order in Japan. And World War III is at hand. The Japanese government has since advised residents that the reported missile launch is thankfully no longer a threat. The message comes shortly after the government warned residents to take cover or evacuate on Thursday morning, following reports that North Korea may have fired a ballistic missile in its direction. Holy macaroni, that's almost as crazy as a neutron star. North Korea being able to... Anyway, are you prepared for the inevitable? It's coming. An EMP will probably knock out the grid in your lifetime. And sooner rather than later. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind and maybe some preparedness food that could last like 25 years on the shelf? We're talking 21 varieties of food, tasty breakfasts, lunch, dinners, drinks, snacks, and instructions on how to prepare them, especially if you don't know how to do that. Now, if you prepare with the ranch at preparewiththeranch.mypatriotsupply.com at the link below, you will save $200 on each 3-month emergency food kit you purchase. It may not be the best food, but it certainly is a hedge against starving to death if the trucks stop rolling. And that is a boom to knowledge. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Please share this video on your social media. We are shadow banned, and it's the only way we can grow. We love each and every one of you. Be safe, and that is a boom. Oh, yeah, buy the Patriot Supply, man. Get peace of mind. Do it.